Hello, everyone. Welcome to our next session. I'm super excited to hear Carrie speak. Carrie was in our earlier session in our panel and just shared so many great insights based on background and experience that she's had with clients working independently as well as in the corporate space. And Carrie and I met a few years ago now through the Asana Together community and just hit it off. Understood that there were just so many connections and similarities around the work that we did, and we got connected on a podcast, and I had the opportunity to interview her. And one of my favorite episodes still to date. Just so much energy and so much experience that is brought to the table. And so I'm excited for you to hear from Carrie on the topic of how using custom fields can become your data set. So Carrie, I will hand it over to you to take it away.
Amazing. Well, thank you for that great introduction. Welcome, everyone. I'll start. I'll give a little bit of background on myself, and then we'll talk a little bit more about custom fields. So, a little bit about me. So, I'm Kerry Hoffman. I am a project manager. I've been a project manager for over 12 years. I've worked in several industries across several companies. I currently operate as an independent project manager, an operations consultant under my own LLC. I believe that everyone can be their own project manager. And so I'm sure there are a lot of project managers that are on the call today that are like, no, this is a trade. This is what we do as a profession. And I agree that that is true. I do believe, though, that a little bit of project management, everyone has a little bit of project management in them, right? And it's always my goal to bring out that side of someone. Um, Outside of project management, I love to travel. I'm currently in an Airbnb in the Hamptons. Those surfboards are not mine to use. There's a sign actually that says "Do not use them." I also love to exercise, and surfing counts as exercise. And I love Rent the Runway. So I don't know if there's anyone out there that uses Rent the Runway. It's great. You rent all your clothes, and then you just send them back, and they dry clean them, which is great. So just a plug for Rent the Runway. This is not a sponsored post. So, we're talking about how custom fields can be really powerful, how they are so powerful. We're going to go into why they're data. I just wanted to give you just a little kind of anecdote where my love of data comes from. So, some people talk about, where did you first meet your partner? I want to tell you where I first met data and fell in love with data. So this screenshot here is a Microsoft Word document that my father started working on maybe over 20 years ago now. It is called the Hoffman Family Calendar. Hoffman is my last name. And it is about 1,100 pages. And it is everything we've ever done as a family. So if you are even just reading some of these entries, they really like span in terms of like how important these things are, right? We've got a trip, went to Puerto Rico, we went to Aruba. I went to see In Sync. You can't see this here, but I've also seen the Backstreet Boys. So that's, if that was your next question, I like both bands. But it's also down to, when my mom and I guess my grandma had lunch, right? This is the Hoffman family calendar. We still keep it up to date. And it's great because we can really look back and start to pull information, right? So I'll give you an example. Spamalot is a Broadway show and it is coming back to Broadway. And so I was thinking, when did I last see Spamalot and where did we go out to dinner that night? And I can just pull up the Hoffman family calendar and I can search for Spamalot and I can see when we saw it. I can see where we had dinner that night. And it also usually includes the cast in that show. So I can also do a search for how many times have I seen this actor in a show, right? It's all in this document. Now, I think where really the love of data comes from, though, is we have all of this data about my family, but it is in Microsoft Word documents. It is not in Google Sheets. It's not in some tech database. Really, its only search functionality is Control F That's all that we have. And so if I want to see how many times, I've seen Tim Curry on Broadway, I think only once, I have to control F for Tim Curry. And then I don't know, maybe he was in a movie I saw, so I can't even filter by that. And I said to my dad, Dad, this really should be a spreadsheet. We're going to need columns. We're going to need which family members attended this particular event, right? We need to know what part of the world we're in. Is this a trip or are we at home? Is this a movie, TV show, or theater, right? We have Rangers season tickets. Is this a hockey game? Who did they play? What was the score? And it would just become so much more powerful, right? We have the data set, but we can't really do a whole lot with it. So let's talk more about Asana. And if you're thinking that I should move this into Asana, that is a great idea. So just tell all of my clients that I am not free until 2025, because I think that might be how long it would take to migrate that in. So today we'll go over some objectives of what we're going to cover in this session. If you're tuning into this conference and you are already an Asana lover, maybe the custom fields basics will be a little too basic for you, but I would like to just kind of get on the same page about custom fields. I'm going to share with you why some other people other than me love custom fields, since I did reach out to my community to get some input, so we could hear from some people that are not just me. We'll talk about the difference between information and data. I'll give you some tips for how to audit your custom field usage. We'll have some key takeaways, and then of course, Q&A. There is, for those that have already been tuning in, there is a Q&A tab here on AirMeet, so you can certainly pop your questions into the Q&A, and I'll try to address them during or afterwards whenever we can get around to them. Okay, so our objectives today. So one, I really want to broaden your definition of custom field, right? I don't know what your definition of custom field is now, but maybe you think, oh, it's just a place we can select, what type of social media post it is, and we choose a color, right? I want to take that definition and expand it a bit. I want to help you find some new uses for custom field, right? So I like to often ask people, does it custom field, right? Could you take an entire task and have only custom fields with no description? That would be wild. It would be a fun game to play if that's your idea of a fun game. I want to help you orient around future planning, right? One thing that's really great about Asana is it helps you do your work on a day-to-day basis, which is great. But sometimes you have to think about future you, right? You a year from now, you 3 years from now, the person who's going to become you 3 years from now. We so often think that everything that we're doing is so unique. We'll never have a project that's quite exactly the same. Sure, it might not be exactly the same, but there's so much that we do that comes up time and time again. And being able to access that data is super helpful, right? And that's really where Asana comes into play. So, I really feel for all those managers in the world who, when their direct reports leave, they inherit their Google Drive of documents. That's so challenging. How do you find anything, right? But if everything's Asana, you really are setting up yourself and your company for success. Also, I just hope that one of our objectives is to interact. So we have this chat, drop ideas. I'm seeing Backstreet Boys gifs in there, thoughts, jokes, anything like that. I know that being virtual, sometimes it's harder to do that. So please use the chat, and let's have a good time. Okay, so just some basics. Oh, and I will kind of read the chat as we go. Someone note they spent hours searching drives and emails for files. Absolutely, right? This is what happens. It's how do you find something from 3 years ago that's in someone else's drive? But in Asana, it's there forever. That's the hope. I don't know what Asana's actual data capacity is, but let's hope it's there forever, because some of you might know that it seems like the capacity at Peloton is diminishing a bit because they keep removing classes from the platform. So that's an interesting data challenge for a different day. So what is a custom field? It's like a quiz. Drop your answer in the chat. How do you define a custom field? There's no wrong answer. Okay, someone's noting that it's hard to know how to categorize. Okay. It's a field that applies to a project depending on its parameters. Yeah. It's a way to view and segment data. It's a column that is editable. Yes, custom fields are columns. If that's not in your definition, that's what it is, right? It's a column. It's a parameter. Yep. It's a way to organize a project. It's a category of data. Um, Someone here is noting that she's saying, I'm in the basic level. It's a way to color code things. But that's a great use of custom field, right? You have to start somewhere. Color coding is an amazing use of custom field. It's a way to visually see data. Absolutely, Paula, right? And if you just saw that Hoffman family calendar, you could already see there was some data in there, but visually it was just a mess. Metadata categories, I like that, it's a fancy word. It's great for reporting. I totally agree. Great for reporting. Yep, right. So these are all definitions of custom fields. So let's just confirm, how does Asana define a custom field, right? So if you go on and just look it up on their site, uh, and just a little applause for being able to Google search so many of your Asana problems, really, right? That community forum and the resources that they have are so, so amazing. Uh, so Asana says a custom field, right, lets you add additional data to tasks in your projects. True. It allows individuals to have clarity on work happening across their organization. I love that as well. And it's just a note that you can create a field for stage, priority, cost, or anything else that's important to your workflow, team, and company. And although this might just seem like the third sentence that they were wrapping up this paragraph with, I think it's really important because it's noting that it's a way to highlight what's important and to sort of agree in advance. This is important data that we want to capture, right? If you go back to that Hoffman family calendar, it almost seems that we did not sit down as a family and decide what are the data points that we want to be capturing on a daily basis. And so instead, we were just kind of long form writing all of this text. So I won't lie, I'm a little nervous that the key takeaway for all of you is to go create a family calendar, and that's how you're going to spend your time. But if that's what you get from this and it brings you joy, go forth and prosper. Okay, so just a few 101s, right? So custom fields can be project specific or global. So you can create a custom field at that project level, or you can click that great button that says add it to your, company's library of custom fields. I've seen clients hover like, do I click this button? What is going to happen? It's just a great way that you can then apply the same custom field to other projects across your organization, right? And so if you have a standard set of social media channels that you promote on, that really can just be a custom field that you add at the global level. I don't know if you've seen this before, you've tried to run a report and there's one custom field, like the LinkedIn is a like lowercase L and the other one it's an uppercase L, and they're not really talking to each other, right? So they can be project specific and they can be global. And that's a really important note too, in terms of project specific. I work with some companies that say, why not just have one big mega project? That's when I ask the question, but would a custom field apply to every single thing in this one big project you've set up, or should you have a few more projects? There are different types of custom fields, right? That's exciting. So they can be single select, right? Choose the only social media platform you're planning to promote this on. Multi-select, choose a bunch, of course. It can be text, which I'm going to be really honest with all of you. I was really unsure how to use this text custom field as of, about a year ago. It's like, why wouldn't I just write this in the description? But as someone noted, it's a great column, right, to pull out to see this text. So a good example of a text custom field that I like, I keep an Asana project called Contacts, and it's a database of everyone that I connect with. So if I speak with someone, I automatically add them to my Asana contacts database, and I use a text field for email. So that way, if I wanted to export it, I'm getting the emails out a little bit more easily. So For those of you that feel that you're meeting a lot of new people, I highly recommend a contacts Asana project, right? And then you can ultimately, if you have to follow up with someone, you can create subtasks. That's a great one. Another great Asana project. This is just a side note, pro tip. If you use Asana in your personal life, is to have a birthdays and anniversaries project, where you set up tasks with all of your friends and family members' birthdays and anniversaries and set them up to recur on an annual basis as that works. So that's a great thing when you look in the morning and you're like, what do I have to do today? I have to present at this Asana conference and wish Megan a happy birthday. It's just a really nice way to start the day. So right, so there's text, there's date, right? The date field. Oh, someone just noted that yes, people like to use the text column for web links, which makes them clickable. That's great. That's a great use of a custom field. So if you have that URL, you can just click it without having to look into the description. You can use the date field. I've had some people ask me, why do you need a date field? Isn't there a due date? A great example of this is I worked with an HR team and they had lots of due dates for tasks, but we wanted another custom field for the start date. When was the new hire actually starting, right? Because we just wanted to track, like, yes, all this work is due May 16th because we're marching towards, a June 1st start date. You can have a person, right? Stakeholders is a great custom field. You can have people. You can put in a number and then even formulas. So custom fields are also searchable and sortable, right? You can run reports on custom fields, sort your projects by custom fields. You could use them as column headers. So these are just a few what I call 101. So just a pause moment. What's your favorite custom field? It's like picking your favorite child. What is your favorite custom field? I'm going to have to go with, I like the single select. I like the forcing mechanism of choosing one. And I think it's very useful and I use it for almost everything. What are some of your favorite custom fields? I know everyone's so deep in thought. What's my favorite custom field? Okay. Marky's saying multi-select. All right. Yeah, due date, single select. I know. The single select and multi-select, they are at the top, right? And they are the most obvious ones to use. It's really kind of figuring out the power of using some of those other fields. Okay. Yeah, single select, multi-select. I feel like there was a time, I bet Marquis or Sebastian would know better than I would, where maybe it was only single select, and when multi-select came out, it was definitely a game changer. Okay, and then just a little bit more custom fields 102, right? So rules can trigger off of custom fields. It's you can create so many more rules if you have custom fields, right? And sometimes you can create rules now that you have these custom fields. And sometimes it works the other way around, actually, where you're trying to set up a rule and you realize this rule will be easier to set up if I can actually create a custom field for it, right? Trish is saying that's the main reason to use custom fields, right? Is automation and rules. You can use custom fields, right, to tie the questions in your form to a custom field. So what social media platform do you need this on, right? It's automatically going to populate that custom field, which is great, which then triggers a rule, which is great. And then someone noted that you use custom fields to add color. That's, to me, I put that in the 102 area because for some people, it is just, I need to capture this data, but once you start color coding that calendar by social media platform, that's really when things get very beautiful inside of Asana. Okay, so why do custom fields have a huge fan base? I asked the Asana community and some people I know. So these are just a few quotes that I pulled, and we're going to spend a little bit of time on a few of them that really spoke to me, right? So customization is my love language, right? So I don't know that that's one of I think there's 5 love languages. I thought that I said recently that free samples are my love language, which is also not one of the love languages. They give you new parameters to play around with for reporting, automation, and isolating information. Someone said they allow me to personalize my projects. Yeah, you can also just use custom fields for yourself because it helps, right? Personalize your own projects. They add dimensions to the project for sorting, filtering, reporting, and automating. They're fancy reportable tags. Yes, tags are still powerful, but not as powerful as custom fields. Someone said the more information I have, the better prepared I am. They streamline communication, they highlight key information, and they can enable almost any person, team, or organization to support almost any workflow or process. So, for example, when someone said here, customization is my love language, right? And that kind of top screenshot, I just have some tasks that are assigned to me. Okay, that's not that great. But then if I look at my contacts database, I have name, the date I met them, what's their email, how do I know them, what company do they work for, what's the opportunity type, right? I can start to really capture so much more information, than if I were just write a little description. I might just be like, oh, I knew this person, we had a quick chat. Now I can end 2023 and tell you how many people I connected with, how many people were new to me versus people I already knew. um, Maybe there's some people on here being like, am I in your contacts database? Well, if you reach out to me after today, you're going to be in my contacts database. This one, right? They give you new parameters to play around with for reporting, automation, and isolating information, right? There's so much fancy reporting in Asana. And since this is not a session on reporting, I'm just going to tell you, if if you don't want to go that route, advanced search is a method of reporting that is amazing. And there's so much that you can do with it. And yes, you can add a filter for custom field, right? And so when companies ask me, why would I want a global custom field? Like what would be a good use case for that? I said, well, what if you had priority, high, medium, low, right? Or t-shirt size of task, and you applied it to a few different projects. You could pull a report and show me everything that's high priority across the organization. Something that I hear all the time, and maybe you experience this as a leader, or maybe you hear this from your leaders, right? There's so many people that are really high up that they're like, I'm not going to look in Asana. I just need to know what's going on this week, or I just need to know what the most important things are, right? Or I want to see the least important things and figure out why we shouldn't do them, right? They're looking for an extraction of Asana. That's what they want. And custom fields is a great way to start tagging your work in a way that you can pull out that information for your leaders, right? Yes, global reporting and senior management, that's what they want. They want that TLDR, which is too long, didn't read, if that's a new acronym for some. I taught that to my mom, and now she's like, every sentence starts with TLDR. The more information I have, the better prepared I am, right? So with custom fields, you're kind of more proactively requesting the information that you want up front, right? In a format that's searchable and sortable, whether it be through a form or even just they open a task in that project where you have the custom fields and they see all those drop downs, right? Those are the prompts. So if you find yourself saying, no one ever tells me if they also want this to be on Instagram stories versus Instagram feed, there's an easy solution for that. You need a custom field for that, right? So all those questions that you're asking yourself time and time again, that's a scenario where you can say, okay, maybe this should be in a custom field. Because it's true, the more information that you have, the better prepared you are. For some of you, you might work across time zones. And maybe you pop on at 9 a.m. Eastern, and you want to get started on something, and you're working with someone on the West Coast and they're not awake yet, they're not working at 6 a.m. And so you don't have that information. You're constantly asking that question. Your custom fields are just there. They should tell a story, is what I tell people. Like, imagine you opened a task that you knew nothing about. Could you, like creative writing when you were in school, right? Could you write a story based on these custom fields? They streamline communication and highlight key information, right? So they really do kind of limit that back and forth by kind of having the answers right up in the custom fields instead of in the description or in the comments. The comments are great. You should definitely use those in Asana to have those conversations. But sometimes that information, right? And you can pin a comment. I know that's coming. You can pin a comment. But sometimes you're like, this is a data point. I need it captured. It needs to live here permanently, and I need someone not to delete it, right? That's a good use case for a custom field. So just to kind of hone in on why custom fields are so important, right? I just want to talk a little bit about what the difference is to me between information and data. So let's talk about something you could have in the description versus what if you put it in a custom field, right? So you could write in the description, the new hire starts August 8th, right? I think that was yesterday. Or you could have a new hire class custom date field, right? You could say, Audrey needs to approve this. Or you could have a people custom field called stakeholder, and you could tag Audrey in it. You could write in the description, we need this for every social media platform. Or you could have a multi-select custom field of all the platforms. You could write, this costs $1,500. Or you could have a number field with the amount. You could be one of those people who likes to use all caps and shout at people in Asana and write high priority urgent. Or you could just have a single select priority field that when marked as high, it adds the most important people, right, as their collaborators. So these are all examples of, what I want one of your, key takeaways to be is when you start writing a description, is asking yourself, wait, is this something I should custom field? Maybe I should custom field this. The answer is not always going to be yes, but it I would rather you all get to a place where you're like, oh my gosh, there's way too many custom fields on this project, and scale back than kind of writing these super, super long descriptions. Okay, but I am curious, how do you use the description box now? Anyone have any fun ways that they use the description box? Maybe instead of custom fields, or to say, we use custom fields, we only use descriptions for X. Also, I'd be happy to share that slide, the last slide that people seem to like. Okay, context, relevant information, supporting materials. I like that. Directions for the task, right? How to. This is what we need to do. I love templated bullets if you use templates. Additional details, meeting notes are great, attendance, directions, right? Context. Ooh, Loom videos. I am really behind the curve, guys, on these Loom videos. I gotta get up to speed on that. I know what they are, I just don't use them enough. Approval task, URL, right? Descriptions are super important, and I've worked with clients that just like put nothing in the description. And they're not using custom fields, so it's not all living in the custom fields, but descriptions are when you really are kind of painting a much bigger picture where you're not just kind of going at the data, right? Custom fields are your data, and use a description to tell a little bit longer of a story, right? The super long must read part of the story, right? But just descriptions, although great, and they're super long, right? It's never enough. You can't just have descriptions and no custom fields because it is much harder to search, right? Did you write that a task needs an Instagram story? It's pretty hard to search for. You can't report out on descriptions in the same way, right? And you want that reportable information. And even if you use templates, it's a little bit harder to standardize. So you can definitely put questions in a template and have people ask them in the description. But sometimes it's easier to say, like, I need you to select a date. I need you to select these platforms. I need you to put this budget as a number and not a super long story about what you think the number might be, right? And so you want to go that step beyond and implement custom fields. So for example, I put here, let's make some custom fields. This is an example of a project that I was working with someone on. What custom fields would you put for this project just based on these three tasks that you see? You can drop your answers in the chat. Sorry, I should have said that. Okay, state, yep. The program name and the school year, state, school type, yep, school level, location. Yeah, right. So here we have the school year is the first name, the first part of the task name. High school, middle school, entire school district, right? So we have school level. Um, what type of program, after school, before school. I imagine there might be one that's during school. People are getting really, I like this number of students, right? That's probably relevant. They've put, we have New York here and LA, those are cities, but then we have a region. So I worked with a client where the project just had tons of these tasks. And you could put all of this information in a custom field, and then you might say, well, then what am I supposed to call the task, Carrie? I moved all the information out and into a custom field. Uh, so you would have to decide on a naming convention. One thing that to me is a little bit of a struggle when you start every task with the year is, it's oftentimes talking about the current year. So it is a little bit redundant to start every task with 2023. But clearly here they're talking about this year and next year, right? And so maybe you make these task titles simpler, like New York High School program, right? Maybe you decide they shouldn't be called by any of these things. Maybe they're grouped in a different way. But the important thing is here, even if you decided not to change any of these task titles, that's totally fine. You still need to put this information in a custom field because that's how you're going to say how many tasks do we have related to the 2022-2023 year? How many things do we have going on with high school? What's going on in New York? What's going on in the Northeast? Are we running any before school programs? How many after school programs do we have? All of that should live in custom fields, and then you can really start reporting out on it. Someone also wrote here, duplicating the task names format can confuse the assignee. Yes, it's true, right? This to me is a little hard to read, and it is something I do like to work on with clients. Like, what is your naming convention going to be? And so, but it's very important that you want to capture. That's what I want. Is I want people to see these task titles and see not a description. That's data. You got a ton of data right there, right? But it's not going to be useful if you don't put it in custom fields. So how should you go about auditing your custom fields in your Asana universe? So I recommend by starting with reading those task titles, right? What do you have in the task titles where you can extract some of that information into custom fields? What words are you repeating over and over again? Ask yourself, can it custom field, right? It's similar to a YouTube show I watched where they were going out for various foods and asking themselves, does it picnic, right? Is this a sandwich I could take on a picnic? Meaning, could I hold it in my hands and it doesn't make a mess? Does it picnic, right? And so you want to say to yourself, does it custom field? Should this be a custom field? You want to check your company's metrics. What is your company reporting out on, or your team, or just your manager? Is it the number of projects? I worked at a company once where there was a desire to show how many tasks a designer did, right? That was an important metric. I didn't think it was that important, but someone else did, right? So we needed a custom field for it. Maybe it's how much revenue you're raising. Maybe it's the number of social media posts that you've done. You want an easy way to get those metrics, and custom fields are a way to do it. And it's also a really great use case if you're trying to upgrade your Asana or even get Asana for your company, to say to your leaders, I'm gonna pull data on how much work we're doing, what type of work we're doing. It's all gonna live right there. So I'm gonna become a data set manager when we get Asana. So, and as you do this audit, right, instead of overthinking it and then sitting and staring at your computer and thinking, what kind of custom fields do I want today, right? I like to say that Asana is a tool that helps you implement your processes, right? It's not the process in and of itself. Sometimes this is crazy. I love digital, right? But I do keep this like very large notebook. Sometimes I like to just sketch out, like with a pen, what the spreadsheet would look like first in my head. Like, how am I trying to capture this data? And then I start to kind of build that in as my column header. So, for example, if my key takeaway from my own session was that I should turn this Hoffman family calendar into an Asana project, what I would probably do is sit down and try to sketch out, like, what do I think the column headers are here. Okay. Any unique custom fields that you want to share? And you can drop those in the chat just so we get some good ideas. Oh, someone also suggested Miro or Figma as a mind map. So yes, for those of you that don't want to write in a notebook, I've used Miro. Miro is a great tool, right? An actual whiteboard is great. Yeah, and if you do have managers that want something for reporting, that's great. But any interesting, I really like the idea of the URL in the text field. That's one I'm going to start doing. Any other custom fields you want to share with the class that you think other people can benefit from? While you drop those in, I'm going to move to the next slide. So I have time to address some of your questions. Relative department, URL formula, testing statuses for UAT. I like that. Okay, so some key takeaways, right? Custom fields are data points. If you already knew that, that's great. What I like to say though is like that is how I would describe them to someone on the street who's like, "Hey, I just got Asana. What's a custom field?" I'd be like, "Custom field's a data point." And then maybe we would have like a nice conversation about it, right? Data is powerful. It's so powerful, and I think you all already know that, right? But it's only as powerful as the data set that powers it. So you can't have data without the data set, right? And so that's where I give my dad like tons of kudos. He built this, he's got a data set for sure. Now he needs a way for it to actually work. Data is more powerful than information, right? Start to think of those things separately, right? We think long form text is the only way to tell a story, but put yourself in my shoes of I went to jury duty once for 2 weeks. It was on a case and I didn't have time to Slack or chat or email. And so I just popped into Asana at our lunch break, which contrary to what you watched, if you watched the show Jury Duty, they didn't pay for our lunch. So on my lunch break, I would check Asana and I needed that to give me all the data that I needed to kind of keep up to date on that. Custom fields are your triggers. I know we didn't go too deep into that, but for those of you that are new to rules, I always say if you're new to rules, don't even look at all the great ideas. I always just go to custom rule because in my head, I know I can think through what I'm trying to achieve. But you can't have these great rules without something to trigger them off of. And so I'll give you an example of a really simple custom field trigger. Let's say you have 4 projects with various types of events that your company runs: roadshows, trade shows, field events, internal events. Cool. You could decide that some of those events need to be on like a master events calendar, and maybe that's based on like where the events, like how many people attend the event. Great. You want to see it on the master events calendar if over 50 people attend the event. That means you need that number in a custom field so you can trigger a rule off of it. You could make something so simple called a custom field called send to master calendar, yes or no, right? And it sends it to the master calendar. So as you're setting up your rules, start to think through if you can't find a rule for it, it might just be that you don't have the custom field for it. And really think of custom fields as you plan for the future, right? Help your future colleagues or your future self by using custom fields. So instead of them digging through to find Instagram posts from fall of 2019, have those custom fields that they can search off of. And now that I'm saying this, if you really want to go the extra mile in helping future you and your future company, you could even do some custom field additions, updating at the end of a certain task, like whether it was high performing, not super performing, that's a technical term, not super performing, low performing. So that way someone could ultimately search what were all of our high performing tasks, right? Those can all be custom fields. So I'm going to go to questions, but I see there are a bunch. So I'm going to start going through these. So how many custom fields do you suggest to have? I hate to give this like cop out answer. It really depends on the project, right? Sometimes you need a bunch, right? Like on a social media project where you're trying to track all these data points. Other times you just need to know if it's high, medium, or low, right? Don't force it because it's annoying to kind of back your way out of it. So start to think through what columns would you have and see if they are custom fields. So I have a tags field in most of my projects, but many of the tags were created before me. Is there a way to edit those? I believe that you can. Oh, they come up here. Look at that. Um, that's a great question, Missy. I'm trying to think if is the concern that now you have to convert these tags into custom fields, which there might be a process for doing those. There is a way to delete tags, and I can kind of share a link on how to do that. It's not super intuitive. How would you increase employee engagement with custom fields to ensure everyone is on the same page? So this is a great question, Alex, because so many times people add too many custom fields and then they're left blank, which is really unfortunate. So one way is you can tell people that to create a task in that project, they have to fill out the related form instead of just opening a new task. I find that that really helps people think through actually adding those custom fields. Um, but another kind of key point is to show their value, right? It's you don't want people to feel like I always have to fill out all this information. What are they even using it for? I like to, for people that I work with, I like to take those custom fields and create a few saved searches for them based off of those custom fields that they end up using. Like, oh, this is so great. Every morning I check my saved search of high priority tasks, and then they find that it's really valuable. Is there a best practice for a max number of custom fields on a project? And I agree, once you have a task that's multi-homed, more custom fields come in. I agree that sometimes you don't want to go too far. And so it really comes down to, I think if we go back, Paula, to that example of the high school, the high school after school before, you could have created like 7 custom fields off of that. And maybe a client would be like, that's just too much. So then you have to agree, let's move the year into a custom field. That seems super portable and really redundant. But let's name the task with the region and the school name, and we'll only capture this. What you really want to focus on with the client is, what is this doing for you? Is it visually more appealing to have this custom field? And if so, great. Or are you actually going to use it to report out on? Maybe that company doesn't really report out on the difference between a before school and an after school program. That's just a description. Great. Don't pop it in a custom field. Our company uses a lot of spreadsheets. Could we replace these spreadsheets by utilizing custom fields? Yes, and here's the way to do this, Laura Lee. So you can get on the phone. Well, you're at the company, so you would have access to this since you're not working as an outside consultant. So when you go to upload a CSV, you can create a new project by uploading a CSV in Asana, and then it suggests based on your columns that it already converts them into custom fields, and it guesses which one would be the best one. They're like, oh, it set this one up as multi-select, and then you can change it. You can say, oh no, I want this as single select. So you can customize it and then generate the project. I did this with someone on the phone the other day. It took like 4 minutes to take her CSV, and we just like quickly changed her columns to, tweak them. And then everything was just already a project, and it was so great. So Asana does the work for you there. Let it do the work. Do you ever get custom fields limit anxiety? Yeah, I definitely feel the pain of, is it too few? Is it too many? Again, don't force it. Just start to see what's happening over and over again. Like, oh, we're constantly writing this down. Just pop it in a custom field. Do you know a way how to rearrange the order of the custom fields inside the task? Oh, wow. I don't know the answer to that question. I My guess is that they're ordered based on where they are in the columns, but now I'd have to test that out. If someone else knows. So the
I can
question
answer that.
is, yeah, go for it.
Yeah, so there's a few ways. It used to be a lot simpler, but there was an update a few months ago where, depending on the view that you're using, so if you are in the list view or the board view, you have to then go to sort, or not sort, sorry, hide, and then you have a list of custom fields there. You can reorder them in that section. And then there's also on the customize side, like under the customize button, you can also reorder them there as well. So there's a few different ways, but if you do change views, the ordering will look a little bit different. So you have to make sure you go in there, update it in one view, save that view as the default, and then go update it in the board view as well if you want it to stay organized in that way. It's a little bit complicated, but yeah, it used to be a lot easier, but that's how you would go about it.
Okay. Let's see. Is there a way to have a custom field for a smaller group than the entire company? 15 budget fields, share them. So probably the best way to do this might be at the team level, right? So with kind of within the team might be a way that you would limit it instead of sharing it with a global organization, although I still think it would share with that global organization. So there might not be a solid workaround for that one. I did see, is there a way to limit the number of custom fields you can have and or use in a task? I won't lie, I did just use the power of Google to see what is the limit of custom fields. It's currently possible to have 100 fields in a project. I certainly do not recommend 100 fields in a project. So, again, it really should be kind of customized to what you think makes the most sense for your team. And it's a great way to start thinking through whether something might need its own project. So kind of to go back to the person's question of like limiting it to a certain group, sometimes it's just a matter of, okay, we just need to have these projects in there. Oh, Liz asked the question that I missed. There is no copy task action in rules, is there? I find that I want that. I haven't found that either, Liz, because I've also found that I want that. You want to create a rule in a project and then go apply it to like 17 more projects. You want to save a rule, right? That's effectively what you want to do. You want to create a rule and save it in your rules library and then leverage it. I like when I see your face come on the screen because I know you're going to answer the question.
I'm going to answer it. Yeah. So if that's what we're talking about, bundles were released a couple of months ago. It's currently only available on the enterprise plan, but it allows you to save rules. You can save sections. You can save sections, and I'm forgetting everything right now, but basically you can build out a template and save specific sections, rules, snippets, comments, whatever you want, and then apply those to the different projects that you want as well. But it's only available on enterprise currently.
That is
All
always kind
right.
of the fun thing about Asana is just everyone's on different levels. And I asked someone recently, like, what's your favorite thing about custom fields? She's like, what are custom fields? I was like, oh, are you on free? And then that's how you kind of that's how you learn. So I think, sorry, you were gonna say something. I think we're at time.
No, we're
Oh
good.
no, we're not at time. Oh, great.
We are. I mean, we can take more questions. I think we're all done in the questions here. I've got some questions for you
Great. Let's hear
as
it.
well. You've got some contact info. So yeah, I mean, thanks, Carrie, for being here and sharing. I was messaging Tasby and I'm like, man, this is incredible. Like, I didn't even know there was this much to discuss around custom fields, but like, it is such a powerhouse. And the way that you described it is like, there's so much that we don't understand or we underutilize when it comes to the feature. So thanks for sharing all that. Maybe I missed it off the top, but the evolution of the Hoffman family, document from like the Word doc to the Excel sheet, is it now in Asana? Did I miss that part, or is it still in
Oh,
the spreadsheet?
it's definitely not. And
Okay.
um, so the document is about 1100 Microsoft Word. It was in Microsoft Word. And then we lost Microsoft Word, so I had to migrate it to Google Docs, and Google Docs could not handle the capacity of the size of that. So then I had to buy storage. And I had to separate out the 1100 page doc into 12 months. So it's actually become even less searchable because you can't search the entire document. You kind of have to search at the Google Drive level, but moving that into even just a Google Sheet sounds like a project for my retirement because of how much work it would be.
Fair enough. Yeah. I mean, a
Yeah.
worthwhile project. I mean, I think we're all
Yeah.
a bit jealous that you have even that document to reference, right? With all that information. Um, just a couple of takeaways for me, and then we can talk about contact stuff and next steps, and we can take a break before our next session. But I loved when I heard that customization is my love language, right? Like, and I totally identify with that. Like on my Instagram bio, it says Asana is my love language. So my ears kind of perked up when I heard that. Um, you answered one of the questions I had was, when is a custom field too much? I think we addressed that. I love what you said, Carrie, when you said like Asana is a tool, not the process. I think I hear that a lot where it's like, oh, like, how do you do this? Oh, it's in Asana. Great. Tell me more about that, right? Can you elaborate? And there often isn't, much beyond that. So understanding that it's a tool that we use to carry out our processes. And then the concept of simply custom fields as buttons, right? You give us the example of you select a custom field and it gets sent to the master calendar. I think that's really, really smart. And it doesn't have to be used for just the sorting and the data pulling for reporting and things like that, but it can initiate things within our tasks and our projects as well. So I got lots of notes, but yeah, I just want to thank you for sharing. Is there anything else you want to say? Leaving closing remarks to the group here?
Uh, well, my closing remarks would be when thinking of a topic, I was like, oh, I love custom fields. I probably can do a whole session on my love of custom fields. And, it felt like when you're given an assignment in grade school, you're like, write an entire report on this like one animal. And then you just know so many things about that one animal. And clearly that was a project I had because everyone got like someone got lion, someone got cheetah, and I got birds of paradise. Which let me tell you, in 1995, finding out more about birds of paradise without the internet was an extremely difficult research project I had to do. But even prepping for this session gave me the opportunity to just really hone in on why custom fields are amazing. And so if there is a field that you feel like you're underutilizing and you have a rainy Friday afternoon, watch some great Asana videos. And if you take away one or two things, there's so much you can learn, right? If you feel like, great, now I know more about custom fields, I need to go on something similar to rules, right? It's just a great way to just fall in love with one of the features. I think this is maybe something that Josh said this morning, right? Don't focus on
Yeah.
what's coming next in Asana. Focus on what you already have, right? Go
Yeah,
shopping in your own home before buying a new home. And I think you'll be surprised by how many treasures you find.
totally. I'm gonna leave. Thank you so much, Carrie. I'm gonna leave the attendees with just a little gift here. I put it earlier in the chat, but Bastien, who a lot of us were in his earlier session, he's developed a tool called the Custom Field Explorer. And
Hmm.
it's exactly what it sounds like. You tap into the back end of Asana and it pulls out all the custom field information, who created it, what projects it lives in, what are the options. And so it's a great way, as you were talking about auditing your custom fields, it's a great way to see what's going on behind the scenes. So if you go to minimalist-work.com, I believe is what it is, you'll see his custom field explorer. Let me just verify that here quickly. There we go. I'm going to put this in the chat for us. It's minimalist-work.com. Save that, bookmark it. You'll thank yourself because it will show you absolutely everything behind the scenes. So Carrie, thank you so much. We got some contact information. So if you want to hear more about what Carrie's doing, how she can help your company, I think we learned a lot today as to what that can look like. Reach out to Carrie and see how we can work together. So we've got some links there and some URLs. But Carrie, I want to thank you so much for being here today and for sharing, and for the attendees. Thank you for your time and your energy and your engagement. We will see you in the next session. We've got about 6 minutes, and we're heading into Asana automations, mastering rules for optimal workflow efficiency with Nadia Martinez. So we'll see you in the next session, and thanks again for being here.
Thanks, everyone.